Welcome back to another episode of the Orca podcast here on Vancouver Island. Whether you are listening from your car or your couch or somewhere near the ocean, thank you for being here. Today we are diving into a question many people have asked, but few really know the full story behind it. So why are orcas called killer whales? And where did the name actually come from? When you hear the word killer whale, what comes to mind? For many people, it's something fierce and dangerous, even terrifying. A powerful black and white predator roaming the ocean, a top hunter, a creature to fear. But here's the truth. That name is one of the biggest misunderstandings in the natural world. Today, I want to take you back in time across the oceans, languages, and cultures to explore how these highly intelligent, deeply social animals ended up with such a misleading name and why many of us now prefer to call them orcas. Okay, let's dive right into it. Where the name killer whale came from, let's start hundreds of years ago, long before scientific studies, hydrophones, or drones. Early sailors and fishermen spent months at the time at sea. They relied on what they saw, what they experienced, and what they heard from other sailors. When they encountered orcas offshore, they were witnessing something unlike anything else in the ocean. Orcas were often seen hunting cooperatively in family groups, working together with remarkably strategy and precision. Unlike many other marine predators that hunt alone, orcas moved as a team. Sailors observed them taking down large prey, including other whales. So, in particular, sailors witnessed orcas were seen attacking and killing much larger baleen whales like gray whales or even young blue whales. To early mariners, this was shocking. They saw smaller whale killing a much larger one. And so in Spanish, they began calling them asesina de balenas, which literally translated to whale killer. But here's the crucial detail most people miss. That phrase did not mean killer of humans. It meant killer of whales. Over time, as this phrase moved into English, it got flipped around. Instead of being called whale killers, they became known as killer whales. And just like that, a simple translation shift completely changed the meaning. Now, here's what I need you to understand. Why is the name misleading? The problem with killer whale is that it suggests these animals are ruthless, indiscriminate killers, which couldn't be further from the truth. In reality, orcas are highly intelligent, emotionally complex, and deeply family-oriented animals. They live in tight-knit pods, often led by older females, grandmothers who have guided their families for many, many decades, share knowledge, and play a key role in the survival of the entire group. They communicate with distinct dialects. Yes, that means one pod might not understand a different pod. And it's passed down through generations. Each pod has its own language, as if you will, its own culture and its own traditions, just like humans. Some orcas specialize in hunting fish, some hunt seals, some hunt other dolphins, dolls' purposes, and sharks. And yes, some of the orcas hunt other whales, but They're not mindless killers. They're skilled, strategic predators, much like wolves on land, which is why they are often compared to them. In fact, many scientists prefer to call them the wolves of the sea rather than killer whales. So, the name orca, where that comes from. So, where does the name orca itself come from? The word orca actually comes from Latin, Orcinus orca. I'm sure you guys all heard about that. So, Orcinus means of the kingdom of the dead or belonging to Orcus, the Roman god of the underworld. That sounds dramatic, but again, this reflects how powerful and awe-inspiring these animals appeared to ancient people. So over time, orca became the more commonly accepted scientific and respectful name, especially among researchers, conservationists, and tour operators. Calling them orcas shifts the focus away from the fear and more towards understanding. Now, the perspective, or let's say a deeper respect for orcas, and for many cultures all around the world, but especially here in the Pacific Northwest, orcas have always held deep spiritual and cultural significance. Some traditions, orcas were believed to be spirits of deceased people who choose to return to the ocean. They symbolize strength, family, connection, but not violence. This is one of the reasons why many people today prefer the name orca. It aligns more closely with how these animals are viewed in amongst many cultures, again, around the world. It means and represents respect, reverence, and admiration. So let's talk about the modern science versus the old myths. Orcas were feared by humans. There were stories of attacks on people, boats, divers, and so on. But here's something remarkable. In the wild, there has never been a documented fatal attack by an orca on a human. And let's sink that in. Not one recorded attack by an orca in the wild. Considering these are apex predators capable of incredible power, yet they have chosen not to treat humans as their prey. Most interactions between wild orcas and people are curious, calm, or simply indifferent. In fact, many researchers describe them as gentle, playful, and deeply social, especially among their own families. And why does the name even matter? Languages shape how we see the world. When we call them killer whales, we frame them as something possibly dangerous, violent, and aggressive. When we call them orcas, we make space for curiosity, respect, and understanding. Neither name is technically wrong, but one carries far more baggage than the other. And as our understanding of these animals grows, so does our responsibility maybe to represent them more accurately for what they are. And there's certainly no vicious killers. Well, I guess there could be if it's the species. But closing today's podcast, I'd like to leave a thought with you all. So next time you see an orca, either on the screen or in a book or hopefully out in the wild, remember this. They are not monsters of the deep. They're highly intelligent, emotional, culturally complex beings who have been misunderstood for centuries because of the simple name twist in the translation from Spanish to English. They are not killer whales. There are orcas, the wolves of the sea, the guardians of the coast, the apex predator, and one of the most extraordinary species on our planet. Thanks again, everyone, for being here today, and I will talk to you guys all soon.